What's up, guys? Bryan Callen here with the Bookless book club that I'm making available to the public because this is important. First of all, I'll be at the Visani Theater this weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday in Port Charlotte, Florida. The Visani Theater. I think one show Thursday, 2 shows Friday, 2 shows Saturday. So get your tickets at bryancallen.com. Now, sometimes when you're my age, you read a book, well, I guess at any age, but I think it's rare to read a book that completely changes your mind and kind of changes maybe even your political philosophy. And I have to say that I was walking through the airport and I've read a bunch of Michael Lewis's books, and The Fifth Risk, this small book, is basically one of those books. And here's why. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm always preaching and harping on about small government and how I'm a libertarian and how the enemy is big government and how government is basically, it taxes people and it passes laws, and those are two coercive measures and it has to be checked, and government should be treated as a necessary evil. And I have a bunch of talking points, and I've been doing this since, I was schooled this way by my father. And what I realized after reading this book was I was suffering from a little something called confirmation bias. One of the Bookless book reviews I did was Jonathan Haidt's book, The Righteous Mind. And in that book, he teaches you how, a human being's mind really works. What we do is we have these feelings. Our emotions control our thinking. And what that really means is that you get a feeling, you have these all this emotional sort of baggage around an issue. Let's say politics. Let's say socialism versus capitalism. And what you do is you instinctively feel a certain way. There is an intuition for how you feel things should be done or what's right. And then human beings are really good at coming up with a story to justify their position, their emotional position. They're really good at sort of cherry-picking data to justify how they feel. And then that becomes their truth. Doesn't mean it's the truth. It just means it's their truth. And you know what, man? At 53, I fell victim to this. And I read this book. And I just want to go through, and I think it's important in this book review, what government does. The book makes an argument that the Trump administration was totally inept and totally, ill-prepared for, first of all, didn't know what government did, just like I don't. And didn't know, more importantly, how we benefit from it. But the fact of the matter is that anybody who is advocating for, tiny government probably is as ignorant as I am about how it works and what it does. And that makes sense because guess who's never been really into the chambers of, the Department of Commerce or Department of Energy or Department of Agriculture or in the Capitol? Me. I've never worked in Washington, yet I have strong opinions about it. And we do this all the time, and I should know better, but I don't. I don't like Kamala Harris. Why? I don't know. I just don't like her. That's not a very good reason. That's just an emotional reaction I have. I think she's condescending. I got a bunch of baggage around Kamala Harris. I actually don't know anything about her. So I should do a little homework before I go bad on Kamala Harris. There, mea culpa. So here's an example of what I didn't know the U.S. government does. And that's why this book, The Fifth Risk, was so valuable to me. Okay? And I'm just going to read through it. The Department of Energy. That department that the governor of Texas, Rick Perry, said we should get rid of. Okay, well, the problem with that is that the Department of Energy has about 100,000 people working in it, many of whom are scientists, like nuclear physicists. And you know what the Department of Energy does? They keep track of our nuclear weapons and all our nuclear waste. And not only our nuclear weapons and nuclear materials like weapons-grade plutonium and uranium, but also like where else it is in the world. Do you guys know how to do that? Because I don't know how to do. I don't know how to operate that equipment. There's a story that he talks about in the book where in Libya, when it was just a shit show, there was this highly enriched uranium that was just missing. And this woman from the Department of Energy, this woman, without a gun, was escorted by Russian security forces and went and gathered up that uranium. We just take for granted this shit happens, but that's a government job. All right. So the more I started reading in this book, I couldn't believe how important the Department of Energy was. More importantly, What really kicked me in the nuts is the fact that the Department of Energy has this program that gives low interest loans to companies that have highly innovative ideas and that can't get financed by the private sector. Oh, I don't know, like for example, Tesla. The first people to invest in a company called Tesla, and I drive a Tesla, is the Department of Energy. Yeah, how about that? Fracking, fracking that made the United States oil independent, not private sector. That was the brainchild of the Department of Energy, all those scientists in there. And the list goes on. It was such a kick in the nuts because the Department of Defense, they have this program called DARPA. And, basically it's to finance very innovative ideas that the private sector would never invest in because it takes too long. It's too expensive. Science like this is really expensive. If you're trying to come up with a new battery or something, it's way too expensive. But the fact is that because of the Department of Defense's investment, we now have something called the internet, GPS, Siri, you use Siri, Kevlar vests. This is the kind of stuff that I was like, oh, geez. And, when I find out the Department of Energy got us oil independent, and by the way, I think we have 35 solar utility scale solar power plants thanks to the Department of Energy. And now solar and wind energy is almost as cheap as natural gas. Again, that's thanks to the Department of Energy. But let's keep going because he talks about the fact that the Columbia River, which I think is it's in Oregon and Washington State, and its tributaries and the river itself basically provides 40% of the hydroelectric power to the United States of America. And guess who manages all that shit? All the dams and stuff? Department of Energy. Guess who is basically responsible for, manages, and monitors the roughly 500,000 billion barrels, I think, or it's gallons of high-level radioactive waste that's in the ground that was created when we were making all these weapons during World War II and afterwards. It's all in the ground, and it's creeping like this giant glacier toward the Columbia River. Well, that's a major fucking problem, isn't it? Well, guess who's responsible? Do you guys know how to manage it? Because I don't. I don't know how to do that. Our tax dollars, though, and the scientists at the Department of Energy are the ones responsible for that. They also monitor all the labs that are basically a national resource. All the labs that keep track of North Korea and all of their crazy testing underground and above ground and all that stuff. All the stuff. When you go to the Super Bowl, you know why you don't have to worry about a dirty bomb? Department of Energy scientists. They got little monitoring devices. So the more I read about this, the more shamed I was in my strong opinions against big government. The fact of the matter is, I benefit every fucking day. They do keep things like, New York safe from, a nuclear explosion, like an accidental nuclear explosion. Who is keeping track of all these nuclear weapons? Who's keeping track of them when they're stolen, when they're lost, or when they might explode? Department of Energy. So when Rick Perry said we can get rid of the Department of Energy, I might have been echoing him, by the way, back in the day. I might have been, because there's a story about how the Trump administration had all these young men, mostly white dudes in their 20s and 30s who were small government guys like good old Bryan Callen. And they were walking through the Department of Energy going, what is this? Does anybody need this? Who's the highest paid guy here? And you guys better not be talking about climate change. Well, that would have been me. I'm embarrassed to say that. I'm fucking embarrassed to say that, but I guarantee I would have been just as opinionated walking through the halls of the Department of Energy with a bunch of quiet, non-political, non-partisan scientists, Nobel laureates who know a shitload about the world and about how to keep us safe. And I probably would have been walking through there like an idiot, like an ignoramus with opinions. So this book has been so humbling and embarrassing. I was embarrassed, so I had to do this. I had to do this whole book report on this because I have been woefully ignorant, and I need to shut the fuck up more. But let's move on, guys. Enough about the Department of Energy, just because they manage the electric grid and all our nuclear waste and weaponry and invest in innovative energy companies and made us oil independent. That's just a recap. Let's move on to the Department of Agriculture. You guys know what that is? Of course you don't. I don't either. But you know who inspects every single animal we eat? Every single animal? So that you don't eat like fucked up animals? The Department of Agriculture. All the chickens. The 9 billion birds a year or something. The crazy number of animals. Pigs and goats and everything else. Let's see what else they do. Oh yeah, you know who manages the 193 million acres of national forests and grasslands? A Department of Agriculture. Yeah. They basically make sure that, you know, they're responsible for wildfires. They can predict wildfires, all kinds of shit. I know they don't do a very good job maybe in California, but for the most part, they are responsible for that. I don't even know if they're responsible for the California disaster. It's basically a massive science program. They manage, I wrote all this down, a massive fleet of firefighting aircraft. They got about $220 billion in assets that see, all these companies have portfolios that they invest. They invest in new technologies and stuff like that. They're all running a profit. So their portfolio is the kind of portfolio any company like Goldman Sachs would love to have. So pretty cool. But like, for example, the Department of Agriculture, they study bee colony collapse. You guys like honey? I fucking love honey. Are you going to do something about bee colony collapse? Because I'm not. I don't know anything about it. But they do. They study it. They have like all these beehives apparently on the top of the roof of the Department of Energy, and they have this whole science program going on there to make sure that they can figure out why bees are dying en masse. Yeah. And by the way, they manage the free school lunch program for children near the poverty line. They subsidize water, school, and food and apartments in many of the poor rural areas. Because, by the way, we have places like in the Deep South and our tribal areas for First Nation people that would be completely neglected. They do not have a lobbying presence in Washington, and they'd be left out in the cold if it wasn't for subsidies from the Department of Agriculture. And guess who used to always talk about big subsidies for farmers and how bad it was? This guy. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I don't know anything about farming. I know nothing about subsidies. I've never talked to any lobbyists, but I had so many opinions because I read a bunch of stuff that was basically right-wing or it was libertarian kind of, one-sided point of view on this stuff. I didn't know what the fuck I was talking about. You know, it's like the Heritage Foundation. When the Heritage Foundation wrote this whole piece on how the Department of Energy basically didn't need this one department that innovates, that basically provides low-interest loans to private corporations who have risky, innovative ideas that they can't get funding for. They wrote this thing, we don't need that. And so the woman who writes the checks, there's a story in this, the woman who writes the checks to the Department of Energy, to the Heritage Foundation, she goes and meets with the head scientist of the Department of Energy, and he's telling her about this program, this really amazing, innovative program. It's like there are ideas, there are wildly innovative ideas that are going to change the way we think. For example, like there might be a bug, they're trying to engineer a bug that can eat electrons and shit oil. Do you guys know how to do that? Because I don't. Try getting financing for that. But those scientists are like, good idea, here's a low interest loan. Or there's another amazing idea where they're trying to come up with a surface on a building. So if it's hot outside, it's cooler inside. So the hotter it is outside, the cooler it is, or the cooler it is outside, the hotter it is. These are these wild, crazy, innovative ideas, right? And so they were telling her that it was a bullshit program. And she said, wait, is this program in the Department of Energy like DARPA? And the guy said, yes. And she goes, oh, I'm definitely writing a check because DARPA created Kevlar, which saved my son's life in Iraq because he was a soldier. So there's like cool little anecdotes to this story. All right. Let me get back to the Department of Agriculture. A couple of other things. So, they basically are the people, the scientists that say that school children that can't afford lunch, that can't afford breakfast, have certain nutritional requirements. There's a certain amount of sodium they can't have. There's a certain amount of sugar they shouldn't have. If you leave school lunch programs up to the snack food industry, good luck. Good luck. You cannot leave these things up just to private enterprise because profit motive takes over. It just fucking does. And this is coming from a capitalist. I believe in the free market. I believe in capitalism, but you cannot let like Nestle, etc., all due respect, control the school lunch program. They'll hire scientists and they'll hijack the data. They will. They'll cherry pick it. And pretty soon your kid will be eating 25%, 30% simple sugars for lunch. And pizza will be considered a vegetable. This is all true shit. And the scientists who are not political, who don't make any money at the Department of Agriculture, by the way, they are the ones who are like, no, man, no. The kids need certain nutritional requirements, and we are setting those requirements. That's government. And it's necessary. New mothers, pregnant mothers who can't afford stuff. The needy. You know where food stamps go? 87% go to children who are poor, the elderly who are in areas that are far to reach, where there's no infrastructure, and to disabled people who can't take care of themselves. That's where food stamps go. Those are people that would not be fed without the Department of Agriculture. Who's going to feed them? You? Me? Me with my private enterprise, all my talk? No, I'm not. I'm not. It's just a massive, massive undertaking. And we have food banks. We have $70 billion, thank God, that can provide food for people like this. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't be fed. Again, this is shaming to me. This was information that blew my fucking mind. And it caused me to say to myself, Bryan, you need to shut the fuck up more often and listen more and read other points of view, which I've not been doing. So, mea culpa. This is bullshit behavior on my part. I'm 53. I'm just embarrassed. That's why I'm doing this whole book report and making it public. I think I've touched on, check this out. Because of science, in 1872, the average American farmer fed 4 people. Now, the average American farmer feeds 155 people. That's technology. In 1950, a cow produced 53,000 pounds of milk. Now, the average cow produces 23,000 pounds of milk a year. Think about that. That's all science developed by the Department of Agriculture. It's basically a huge science experiment in that huge, giant, monolithic building. Let me keep going. Oh, and so if you believe in climate change or you don't, I don't know. I don't know anything about climate change. Okay, but it's a political issue. The Department of Agriculture doesn't give a shit whether it's political or not. All they know is that 1/4 of the arable land in this world is degraded. It's been overfarmed and overgrazed. So not only that, because like climate is changing, we may have to get sheep, for example, to graze at higher altitudes. Whether you believe in climate change or not, the climate, there are changes in the climate, and it may be that sheep will not have enough grass to graze at lower altitudes. So we have to get sheep to graze at higher altitudes. Don't ask me why. But that's the kinds of problems that they deal with at the level of detail. That has nothing to do with politics. It has nothing to do with left wing, right wing. It has nothing to do with libertarian or socialism. These scientists are there not because they're making money, but because they enjoy the work. They love the work. And they are solving real problems and feeding us. I don't ever think to myself, well, this piece of meat might be bad. No, I take for granted that the meat and eggs I'm going to eat have been harvested, and by the way, even humanely. You know who's responsible for the mistreatment of all animals? The Department of Agriculture. Do you want animals to be tortured and treated really shitty? Well, when they find that stuff out, there's a department that goes out there and investigates that stuff and prosecutes that stuff. Thank God. I can't do it. I don't know how to do that. That's a massive undertaking. I just take for granted that we're able to feed in this country 300 plus million people, fill them full of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, and tasty ones at that. And by the way, at a price that's stable, doesn't go all over the place. Department of Agriculture has a lot to do with that. Yes, the free market too, 100%. Yes, capitalism is awesome, but that doesn't mean you get rid of all government programs. It doesn't mean that we don't live in a little bit of a socialist country, actually. And I didn't know this. And ready for this? A little socialism, if this was what socialism is, a little socialism in that regard, I pay 50% of my fucking money goes to the government anyway. So I'm basically living in a socialist country. But if there are good government programs that seem to work, and this is what this book taught me. So if you want to call that socialism, you want to put a label on it, go the fuck ahead. I don't care. Either way, again, this has been such a kick in the balls. But another thing I want to go back to is the fact that a lot of the rural parts of this country, that, by the way, typically vote conservative, are kept afloat buy subsidies from the Department of Agriculture. They provide small business loans, which I didn't know. They provide housing for people who couldn't afford it. They provide food. They provide, let me see, what else? Internet. They provide health care. They actually create health clinics, which I didn't know. That's the Department of Agriculture. Oh, how about this? This is great. Who shoots firecrackers off at low-flying geese so they don't fly into your plane's engine when you take off at any major airport? Department of Agriculture. I didn't know geese were a problem. But thank God for the Department of Agriculture. And thank God for all those quiet civil servants and scientists who are there because they're servants. They're civil servants. They're not there for the money. They're not there for the glory. The only time they get any attention is when shit goes wrong. The Department of Commerce predicts the weather. That is one of the greatest intellectual achievements that nobody talks about is the fact that the National Weather Service and those scientists at the Department of Commerce have become amazing at predicting the weather, at predicting things like tornadoes, which kill, like, I didn't realize the force of a tornado and what it does to places like Joplin, I think that's the name of it, Joplin, Missouri, or places like that. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable how if you're caught in the path of a tornado, tornadoes will take a garden hose and run it right through a tree. Or they'll take a tractor trailer and throw it 200 yards on top of a building. Good luck surviving that shit. I had no idea. Hurricanes. But more importantly, well, just as importantly at least, they teach farmers like when to drop fertilizer, for example. Like, you know, so if you drop a bunch of fertilizer, which costs a lot of money on all your land, and it rains the next day, it all washes away. So you rely on the data that all those sort of weather stations, like the weather balloons, the buoys, the water buoys, the radar stations, the satellites. You rely on that. You rely on what you're going to do. If you have an orchard and there's a wildfire, the Weather Service is the one through their satellite imaging that can find fires, hotspots before you know they even exist and warn you. This is incredible. The reason that you know there's going to be turbulence is obviously because the weather servants, when you're flying, or the reason you know it's safe to take off is because of the data from the National Weather Service. And one of the cool things about predicting the weather is the entire world cooperates. Everybody shares data. The planes, they pick up data, boats pick up data, and they all share it with each other in this, I guess, this massive database. But somebody's got to manage that. Somebody's got to put that through. And now, one of the things they talk about in the book is that, like AccuWeather, for example, which is a private weather service, they are charging people with apps on their phone, and they claim to be better than the National Weather Service. You know what fucking is crazy about that? They use data that the National Weather Service provides for them. So that's our tax dollars at work, and AccuWeather comes along and goes, oh, by the way, you have to pay for this. Well, no, motherfuckers. We've already paid for it with our taxes, and the National Weather Service does a goddamn good job of it. But, this is where private enterprise tends to hijack certain things. Maybe AccuWeather is good, but it seems the National Weather Service is doing a really good job. And they've really helped farmers. They help farmers in so many ways. Like, I don't know, like how much water does your land hold? They can tell that with infrared imaging and stuff. There's all this stuff I wrote down that was kind of crazy. By the way, they also do things like they're responsible for the Census Bureau. The reason we know how many people roughly we have in the United States is the Department of Commerce. The reason we know what our GDP is and how our economy is going with all that data that they compile is the Department of Commerce. Scientists who are looking at all this data. So we use this information all the time. This is where our tax dollars are hard at work. Here's so $5 billion of the $9 billion annual budget. $5 billion goes to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Agency, which goes to figuring out the weather so you don't crash in a plane, so you can plan your wedding, move to higher land if a hurricane's coming, drop fertilizer on your land, get rain insurance for a baseball game, little shit like that. So you can figure out the best shipping route. Think about that. I never thought about this stuff. I mean, when somebody gets lost at sea, you call Coast Guard. Well, that would fall under the Department of Commerce. I know. Crazy. So weather satellites, weather radar, weather buoys, weather balloons, farmers, what kind of soil do I have? How does it retain water? It's just unbelievable. Satellites take soundings of the temperature and moisture in the atmosphere, measure vegetation coverage, monitor ozone levels, detect hot spots, again, so they can see fires and warn people before they know they exist. So I guess at the end of the day, what I'm saying is this book has been such a kick in the nuts. Michael Lewis's book, The Fifth Risk. I picked it up by accident. I was in the airport. I love his writing, and I said, let me give this a shot, and I'm so glad I did because it humbled me. It humbled me, and it made me realize how wrong I was, how opinionated I've been. And frankly, I've done it in a public forum. And I've always made fun of actors who have political points of view. Well, I was exactly like that. And I've been pontificating for a long time. And I've been doing it from a position of ignorance. And that's why I say to you guys, it's so important to read broadly, to read points of view that are not your own. Do not purify your echo chamber. You will be an ignorant moron like I've been about all things government. It doesn't mean I'm a socialist, and it doesn't mean there's not a lot of waste in government. That's not what I'm saying. And it doesn't mean I'm against the free market. I love the free market and I love capitalism. But give credit where credit's due. There is a place for government. And this book makes a really good argument for it. And it changed my 53-year-old mind. So thank you, Michael Lewis. And I hope you enjoyed reading this book as much as I have, because I think you have read it now. It's pretty much all you need. But if you want to pick it up, it's a really interesting critique on the Trump administration and how ignorant they were as to how government works. I was too. So, I got nothing to say. Let's be a little bit compassionate for people that have strong points of view. They're just ignorant, like I am. And I'm going to try to get better at that. So thanks for listening. And I'll see you at the Visani Theater this weekend. And then maybe I'll be in Denver in February at Comedy Works downtown. February. BryanCallen.com. Check it out. God bless. We'll see you later.